Teithio dros ei llwybrau a thaim o'i hyd. Tiroedd ein dewinoedd ar gan yn un ar gwynt yr
Well, welcome to the Snowdonia National Park's May podcast. This is the first for me. I'm Peter Rutherford. I'm the Access and Wellbeing Officer for the National Park. And I think I work for the park now almost 20 years. And in my role, it covers various aspects across the National Park, legal and access issues, which I deal with on a regular basis and advising the general public. Frequently, I have to work with the Snowdonia Society, based in Bryn Rhyfel outside Carnarvon. And today we're going to be having some interesting discussions with some of their members and trustees. Well, welcome to David Archer, our one of our ex-National Park directors, in fact. And today we're going to be talking about the Snowdonia Society and some of the history, David, behind that. I know you go back quite a long way with the Society, and you had early days with Esme Kirby and other characters on the Society. Yeah. Could you give me a bit of a sort of potted history?
Well, yes, I can. I should explain that I've only been a member of the Society for about 12 years, because when I worked for the Park Authority until 2007, there was a possible conflict of interest if I was a member of the Society. So I didn't join the Society till a couple of years after I left the Authority. So I speak with forked tongues in the sense that I was on the Park Authority side for the earlier years of the Society, but then for the last 12 years, I've more than that, 14 years, I've been with the Society. So the Society started in the 60s. The Park Authority, of course, was created in 1951 and worked to a joint advisory committee. And a number of both local people and visitors to the park felt that the Park Authority wasn't the Park Authority, and the Joint Advisory Committee wasn't really doing the job it was set up to do. And it needed an organisation to prod it and goad it and encourage it to be more proactive, to meet the purposes of national park authorities. And there was one particular person, the famous Esme Kirby, who really got it going. Esme was a real live wire who moved to North Wales and Snowdonia in the 1930s and married a man called Thomas Furbank, who was well known for writing I Bought a Mountain. And they bought a farm on the Glidders, Dyffryn Mumber, which is a large upland farm, and really with very little experience of farming, they set about farming it. And Esme was a very active farmer. But she was also devoted to Snowdonia and protecting the landscape, wildlife, and the local way of life. And she felt that the park organisation, the Joint Advisory Committee, really wasn't up to the mark. And so she got together in 1966. She called a meeting in, I think, Betws-y-Coed, to say, are there other people who feel that we should set up an organisation to do something about the National Park Authority? And there were quite a few people attended, and gave us sufficient incentive to call a further meeting in 1967, of which 120 people attended, and they agreed that a committee should be formed and a constitution drawn up, and that Esme, of course, should be chair. Yes. And so the Snowdonia, it was then called not just the Snowdonia Society, it was called the Snowdonia National Park Society. And that, as we will find out, causes endless confusion for the next 20, 30 years, because people got confused between the National Park Authority and the National Park Society.
Yeah, even I can remember that happening.
Yes, yes. And so the society was set up with an active group of proactive people, both mainly locals actually then, or people who lived in the area. And they set about challenging the Joint Advisory Committee and requiring them to do a much better job. But they also went about quite a lot of practical tasks, like clearing litter, doing some footpath work, to show what could be done. Esme was a real live wire, but how can I put it? She wasn't very diplomatic. In fact, she wasn't diplomatic at all, and got right under the skin of the local politicians, the director of highways, and so on. And as the society developed, there was one group of people who thought the society is doing a great job. There was another group of people, the local politicians and officials, who thought she was a real pain in the arse. So the society moved step by step, and so that's how it started, and it was largely due to Esme Kirby for getting it motivated.
What were the main sort of gripes at that time?
Well, the main gripes, I think, was that on the one hand, as after the war, as the economy improved, the number of visitors coming to Snowdonia increased substantially. I mean, very substantially, and there were neither the facilities nor the management to adequately look after this large number of visitors. So the visitors were not very happy, but neither were the locals, who saw all these people flooding into Snowdonia, walking on their land, letting their dogs loose, but without adequate precautions by the park authority to do anything about it.
So in many respects, it's a kind of reflection of even what's happening today.
Yeah, well, it is in a sense. I'm afraid public bodies are usually a little bit behind, or a long way behind, the demands of the general public. There were also, I would say at that time, there was also considerable concerns about some of the developments that were being allowed in the national park, which was set up by government to protect and conserve the landscape and natural beauty of Snowdonia. And first of all, we had a nuclear power station, which was actually built before the society was set up. That was in the 60s. Llyn, the flooding of Llyn, and major road improvements. And the society was really fairly powerless to do anything about that except motivate public opinion and press. So it really did a lot of good, I think, the society in showing to the wider public that the landscapes that they wish to protect were being damaged, and it needed to motivate public opinion to change the policies.
It's very interesting, David, that most, I think, not if not all of the national parks in the UK now have got similar societies, sort of keeping an eye on the national parks.
Yes.
And I know these days we work very closely with the society. I think we're far closer now than we've ever been before, in fact. And they obviously they help us out with the volunteer schemes and the Croeso Nôl and the Eryri schemes coming up now. I just wondered, what were your feelings on the future development of the society?
Yeah, well, first of all, because I work for the Park Authority and then for the society, I was very concerned at the rifts that I could see between two organisations that essentially were trying to do the same job. And there certainly were periods in the 1980s, but also just as I was leaving the Park Authority, where the society, the Park Authority almost refused to talk to the society. And the society felt they were banging their head against a brick wall. And the changes that have occurred over the last 10 years, I think, have been largely due to changes in personalities at the top of the organisations, I think. So that we're both determined to work together. And I think that will continue. The society is criticised at the present time on occasions for doing the job that the Park Authority should be doing. And there is some truth in that. The Park Authority, because of cuts in the budgets, have had to lay off a number of staff, which is included, and you can correct me on this, part of the warden service, some of the estate staff, and so on. So you no longer have the resources to do the key work on maintaining and looking after the park. And so the society has stepped in to try and help with that. But also, particularly as we've seen, we saw it partly with foot and mouth in 2000, but certainly with COVID, to help the Park Authority to put across the message to the public of how they should behave in the national park.
I must admit, we've had some fantastic results from the volunteer scheme, and all of whom came from the Snowdonia Society, or arranged by your officers and our officers. And it's been really gratifying to see them out and about doing such great works, and we're looking forward to working with them in the future. So we're very grateful for all of this from the society, and it's not a small task, is it, to get all these people together and get them organised, their safety and their tasking, their transport and their general organisation. And I think it's a wonderful thing that's what's happened especially during COVID. It's really pulled us together and heading off in the same direction. And I'm grateful to say that. So anyway, David, I'm really much obliged to you for this, for giving us that really potted history. It's very interesting for people who really didn't know any of this. And I did meet Esme myself some years ago, and she did strike me as being very formidable. So I'm not sure anybody's ever going to walk in her shoes again. But we're very grateful for what the society is doing, and
Yeah.
Thanks very much indeed. I'm sure you convey our messages to the trustees.
I will do, but I would want to say one more thing, and that is we're very pleased and to work so closely with the Park Authority. I mean, I think it's a great step, but that won't prevent us from bringing a critical friend. If we think the Park Authority is proposing a development or supporting a development or a course of action that will be damaging to the national park, then we will say so. So that close working won't stop us.
Well, that's what you're there for. That's very commendable. I don't think anybody could argue with that.
Good.
Thank you, David.
Nice to talk to you, Peter.
And you too.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Well, welcome to Claire Holmes. I think Claire is the engagement officer for the Snowdonia Society. And this is for our May podcast, Claire. So it's going to be quite an interesting exercise finding out more about the Snowdonia Society, actually. Would you like to tell us what your job entails as the engagement officer?
Yeah, so the broad umbrella of my work is obviously engagement, which involves recruiting new members, communications, fundraising, coming up with kind of new fundraising plans through this overarching idea of engagement, both in normal times on the ground, face to face with members of the public at various events, but also online as well, which has been obviously more common this last year through kind of digital messaging and web posts and that sort of thing.
Okay, so that's pretty wide-ranging. That's pretty responsible, really, when you consider, fundraising and looking for funds is always a difficult task. And keeping things going must be quite hard on you, actually.
Yeah, I mean, this time last year, obviously, everything was, and as it is still now today, no opportunities, no in-person engagement or fundraising work was possible. Usually I run an events program that's in addition to our volunteer program that our project officers run. The events program is things like walks and talks, attending fairs and workshops. So none of that in-person kind of fundraising or member recruitment potential was realised. So, at first it was quite a sort of foggy situation, difficult to see, how the future looked. But actually, as many charities have done, we've evolved pretty quickly and, now focusing lots of our work online and using new ways to fundraise and engage with new audiences online.
Just thinking about the society, generally speaking, what are the principal purposes of the society? I know you've been going for quite a long time.
Yeah. So we were founded in 1967, the original kind of aim, our original purpose is to act as an independent voice to protect the special qualities of the national park for the enjoyment of people who live, work and visit the area, and also obviously for the benefit of the non-human that inhabits the national park too, the wildlife and the nature. Today we're still very much an independent voice, but a couple of things that have evolved and changed are that we're more and more our practical work it forms the core of what we do now, as well as the campaigning side of things. And it's a bit on a bigger scale. Hundreds more volunteers are joining us, even now, even today, and also working in partnership with other organisations.
Do you have many members?
Yeah, so we have 1,500 members. So people who have subscribed to become members of the Snowdonia Society, which obviously is very different from volunteers. We've got hundreds of volunteers as well as those members that support our work. So, there's different ways that people can help us. They can either become members and support us financially, or they can volunteer and they can help get the practical work done on the ground.
Is it fairly easy to become a member of the society? I mean, is there a process or a vetting process or something that people can sign up to?
It couldn't be simpler. You just go to our website or and click join. and yeah, it's very easy. And in terms of volunteering, we welcome everyone to come and help out we've got lots of different kinds of volunteer activities that are open to all sorts of abilities, and very much we really do want to welcome everyone to play their part in protecting Snowdonia, whether it's becoming a member or volunteering or making a simple donation. There's lots of different ways that people can help.
I know during it was very difficult for everybody to function during the first lockdown and indeed the second lockdown. But I mean, the society was instrumental in working with our volunteer coordinator in providing the volunteers for the Welcome Back scheme, and the Crush and All is what we called it, and that was very successful indeed. And we're looking forward now to the lifting of this next lockdown with the Cael Eryri scheme that's Love Snowdonia, and on behalf of the National Park, I can only say a great thanks to the society for what the volunteers and the officers have done to help us help the public in bringing people back to Snowdonia. It's been quite a fantastic achievement, whether it be litter picking, advising the public, even tree planting and being in car parks. They're not the most glamorous jobs in the countryside, but certainly their impact has been disproportionate in a very positive way. And I'd like to thank you all for that. Is there anything else you'd like to say to us for this podcast?
Well, just to everyone, get involved somehow. We have lots of local businesses who support our work as business members. People who put their money where their mouth is and I guess want to make a difference. Obviously their business might depend on Snowdonia being beautiful and enjoyable for everyone. People can help on the ground, come and join us out volunteering. It's like you say, it's not the most glamorous work sometimes, but in terms of fulfillment and feeling like you're helping to make a difference, I think that way outweighs the kind of the glamour factor. And it's there's something really nice also about, I think especially over this last year, people have been quite isolated. There's actually something quite fulfilling about going out and approaching people and saying, did you know this is how, if you're enjoying Snowdonia, you can help, bring your litter, take your litter home, act responsibly. And there's something really nice also about engaging with people in that quite simple sort of in a dialogue sense. I don't know, after having so much isolation, obviously. Yeah.
I have been out a few times myself to see the volunteers and, and express my appreciation. And I'm always in awe of the time that they give us, and also the way they are with the public. Interaction with the public is quite fantastic. And obviously these people are a notch above in terms of dedication. And that's to be admired. And also, I suppose generally it's very good for people's physical health, but also for their mental well-being to get out into the countryside. And that's equally important these days, given all the stress that everybody has been under. And I think they probably do get quite a lot out of it in those terms.
Yeah, and I think now more than ever, people have always known the like you say, the well-being benefits of volunteering, but it couldn't be more obvious now, I think, following everything that's happened. And also, we all love living, visiting, playing in Snowdonia, so let's do our part to look after it and to enthuse other people to do the same as well. Everyone can play their part in doing that.
Apart from Cael Eryri and the scheme following this next lockdown, have you got any other major plans in the pipeline?
Yeah, I'm starting now to sort of think about our, how we run our events program this summer under social distancing, and under the new rules. So there will be some walks planned, and then some workshops, and we have our annual Mad Weekend, that's quite a new event that we sort of started for our 50th anniversary a few years ago. That will be happening in September, albeit in a slightly different capacity. Mad Bach, we're calling it. But again, another opportunity for lots of people to get involved, and join us with our volunteer activities in September. We also have our, we're really excited to be, really increasing our kind of opportunities for young people. So we've launched a new accredited training opportunity for young people to get recognition for the volunteering they do for us, and then hopefully that will help them in their conservation sort of based career. And we're offering work placements and paid trainee posts to young people. So we really do want to help young people get a foot in the door in conservation.
That's quite encouraging for the future. At least we can get people out and train people in this various elements of countryside management. Be it walling, fencing, planting trees. There's a whole gamut of skill sets there, isn't there? I'm sure. So I wish you luck with that, and I'm sure the National Park will partner up with you or help you out in whatever way we can. So thank you very much, Claire. That's been a very interesting insight on what you get up to and what your plans are for the future. And again, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thanks, Pete.
Well, hi, Lisa. Speaking to Lisa Wells. Lisa is a volunteer with the Snowdonia Society, and we're just going to have a quick chat about what they get up to and why. Lisa, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me along to have this chat. I'm quite passionate about the Snowdonia National Park. I've promoted it heavily over the years with the role that I do with Ordnance Survey and the Ramblers. Through social media, I'm constantly telling people to come and visit us. It's a beautiful place to bring your family, to meet friends.
I'm very interested to know, why people do you think volunteer in the first place?
For me personally, there's a massive sense of pride of being part of the team, I've felt. There's also the group that you're with on the day. I've become very good friends with them. I love chatting, as you'll probably tell by the end of this. I love meeting visitors, chatting to them, helping them, advising them.
Yeah. What do you think volunteers actually get out of volunteering, as such?
For me, the mental sort of buzz I get from at the end of the day is incredible. It's also sort of going back to your first question. I feel like I'm giving something back, and I feel that a lot of the volunteers feel like that too.
When I meet them, I've met quite a few of them on the ground, during the last, after post-COVID, the last time. I've got to say I'm full of admiration, because there's such a wide selection of people, and yet they're such a willing bunch. I mean, let's face it, litter picking, for one exercise, it's not the most glamorous thing in the world to do, is it? But I feel, I really am full of admiration for what they do.
It's not glamorous at all, and carrying around a litter picker and a black bag, you don't look great, but everybody I meet when I'm out with the groups always has a huge smile on their face. We get quite excited if we spot a sparkly piece of paper, yeah.
What's the most unusual thing you've come across or you've been asked by the public?
The most unusual thing we found was in Ogwen Valley, and it was a car exhaust. That took quite a bit to carry that back. I found a pair of boots at the weekend on the walking path, so I'm not quite sure how the walker made it up or down, because both boots were there. I get asked random questions. I was asked if there was a cafe at the top of Rhifyn. which I advised there wasn't, and to make sure they had plenty of fluids.
Yeah.
So
You never know what you're going to come across.
you don't know, and I think that's, for me, one of the nicest things is just embracing every question and every person that stops us with a smile. We're there to help. And
That's very commendable. So how do you think things are going to go in the future? Have you got any ideas about post-COVID this time around?
Post-COVID, I think it's going to take a couple of years for things to settle back down again. I think this year we're going to see an increase in visitors. People are staying at home, and why not? It is beautiful. I think more people have discovered the joy of walking again, which is great.
I think it's been disappointing because there are certain elements of people who are visiting now who don't seem to have a connect with the countryside or the countryside code, and behaviour is not what it should be. Have you any ideas how we could sort of tackle that?
I think it's just, the likes of us, I think the volunteer scheme is wonderful. And I think the more people we can talk to and the more presence we have out there in the park, just stopping and talking to people, explaining what we're doing, will help massively. I think I was asked actually last week, do I get annoyed at the litter? And I don't get annoyed at the litter. I think if we all did a little bit and made ourselves visible out there as to this is what we're doing, then hopefully it might just trigger somebody to be a little bit more careful with a little bit of litter or their tissue. People don't realise that banana skins and orange skins can take years to decompose. They think it's a fruit, it's natural,
That's one of my favourite subjects, and something I've actually had a few requests today on email about wild camping and about coming to the Snowdonia, which I get on a daily basis. And one of my pet hates is the organic litter issue. And certainly on Snowdon, around halfway on Llanberis, it's all over the place. So we're very keen to include that issue in with the general littering issue. And but that's a lot harder for volunteers to pick up and dispose of, and it's because it's harder to handle. So, it certainly is quite a big proportion of the waste that's been left on the hill. I think it's a bit disappointing that the national message, we used to get the countryside code, and do you remember the aardvark adverts with the seagull and the donkey and all the rest of it? And they were really good, and they were quite hard-hitting, actually, although they were very subtle. We don't seem to have that national approach to the litter issue these days, which I think we should have.
I agree, and I think it goes back as well to the banana and the orange skin. People I talk to genuinely think that it will just be fine to drop that kind of thing because it decomposes. And I had a chat to somebody about tissues. They're a mass. I'm always picking up tissues. And they take years. People don't realise. I think that's a massive thing.
If you consider, we have 550,000 people walking up Snowdon, and everybody has an apple or a banana or an orange or a tea bag, that is a substantial amount of organic waste, and it's a massive contributor to the litter issue, generally speaking.
It is. Sort of again through social media, which is where I can't kind of try and spread everything. I'm just encouraging everybody to take out a bag. If it's safe and you don't mind, if you see something, pick it up. So hopefully we can all do that little bit, and sort of keep the problem down. But how we address the problem to start with is it's quite tricky. Yeah.
So how do you see your role in the future? Would you continue, or is it a temporary thing?
No, definitely. It's as long as you need me, I'm here. I get an awful lot from it, and and it's very rewarding. Yeah.
Well, all I can say on behalf of the park, we're very grateful for what all the volunteers do. It's immeasurable, really. We could not put it into. It's very hard to put it down on paper, even. But really, from the national park, we'd like to express our thanks to all the volunteers that come and help us with the schemes, and we're very grateful indeed to the society. So on that note, thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you very much. It was lovely to meet you.
I'd just like to say thank you to all our guests in this podcast from the Snowdonia Society, David Archer, Lisa Wells and Claire Holmes, for a very interesting discussion. So we hope everybody enjoyed the podcast, and till the next time.